Well, I love cooking, I love eating, I love talking about food, and that is my job. And I think that when I talk to a lot of people in my life, a lot of them are really happy with their jobs and a lot of people aren't, or they don't talk about them. I am one of those lucky people that love what I do.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Over the last 15 years or so, the new wave of Australian dining set the culinary landscape on a new path. Now, another new dawn is approaching where the alumni from those kitchens are bringing a new aesthetic and expression to the restaurant industry, and the impact is very exciting. Elizabeth Mitchell is the head chef of Alberto's Lounge in Sydney. Elizabeth, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. It's good to get you on the show. You're leading the team at Alberto's Lounge, a really exciting venue in Sydney. Well, what's it been like?
I just love working here so much. I've learnt so much over the last 3 years. We've got a great little team. It's a very sexy restaurant that I'm very proud of. It is. It's great.
Well, the Swill House group have this amazing knack of creating the sort of venues that Sydney didn't know it needed. What's it like working with them?
It's great. I think it's wonderful that I know that you can grow within the company. That's really important, I think, for people. But I just really like their aesthetic. I'm really proud of all the venues that they own, and I think that's important to work somewhere that you're proud of and that you want to go to as well. You know, you don't want to just work there and not visit.
Tell us a little bit about the food that you're cooking at Alberto's Lounge.
We make fresh pasta every day. We're really produce driven, so seasonally driven produce. I love our Carfagiani gelato machine. That is like one of the coolest things we have in this kitchen, really. I'm very proud of it. So at the moment we have like a Queen Garnet plum sorbet and a pistachio gelato. They are incredible. You can't go wrong with that. It's beautiful. I tell it I love it every day, that machine. But we go all across Italy, really. We don't just stick to one area.
You mentioned about seasonal produce, and it's a real big part of what you do in connecting with producers. Is there any sort of key producers that you deal with that you can tell us about that are really important to what you do?
Yeah, I just got on board Parisi Australia last year, and they're wonderful. They work with a lot of different producers across Australia, including like Romaro, which are based in Victoria, and they started producing a lot of different Italian varieties of lettuces and vegetables that weren't ever grown here commercially, which is wonderful for me, like things like Tardiva di Treviso, and other vegetables that are just, the quality is so high. They pick it all on Wednesday and I get it by Thursday, Friday, and it's just premium. So that's really cool. I love working with them.
I want to explore some of your cooking techniques and dishes that you're doing there, but take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play in your family growing up?
A huge part. My mum was such a thrifty cook. She cooked every night, and I think it really started with her. We used to watch cooking shows together daily, and like especially Two Fat Ladies. I grew up on that. You know, that was just such a big part of my life. I've got all their cookbooks. I love them, and Rick Stein. But we used to go to the library and rent Gourmet Travelers, because I think she told me it's because she didn't want them to collect dust at home, but I think she just couldn't afford them, which is really sweet. So we used to just hire them monthly and read them together. And we used to photocopy all the recipes and keep them in a big cookbook in the kitchen.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's the best. We used to also on Fridays we used to go to Haymarket together, buy lots of dumplings and herbs, and then she would take all the prawn heads from the freezer and make a laksa with them. That was really she's yeah, she's really cool. So I think it started from there. Yeah, I think it started from there, to be honest.
Well, that's an incredible foundation to start from. Tell us about the first steps that you took into the industry when you thought that a career as a chef was for you.
I was living in Perth for a bit and I worked at Simon Johnson for a while. And then that gave me a lot of knowledge. And then that was when like people like Adrian Uzumbo and things like that, MasterChef and things like that were happening. And I really wanted to get into pastry. So I came back to Sydney, started my pastry chef apprenticeship. And yeah, then I went from there.
Take us into that kitchen. Pastry is such it's such a definitive and precise craft. What was it like starting with that?
I think it's it was I think it's a I think a lot of people would benefit from actually starting out in pastry because, like you said, how precise it is, and also it's a lot about problem solving. You've got to you've got a lot of problems to solve, including freezers and deep freezers and things in your deep freezers that are blast chillers that are very hot, and you've got melting ice cream. And I think it's very stressful, that job. It's longer hours, I think, than anyone else. And I gained a lot of experience just from my early roles at restaurants. Invaluable.
I really love that perspective about problem solving and that approach. Is that something that's been a feature with your craft now, that sort of you approach it as problem solving?
Definitely. I think it's I think it's benefited my whole life, really. I think especially as a head chef, it's all about problem solving. I kind of get off on solving a problem. I'm pretty good at it.
As you were building your career, what were some of the really important venues and people that helped shape who you are as a chef?
Definitely. I've taken a little bit from all of my jobs. You know, what you want, who you want to be, who you don't want to be, how to treat people, how you want to be treated. But I've really benefited from working with Pasi, and he was wonderful. I worked with him at Acme for a little bit, and I just loved his attention to detail and just his drive. We'll just chat for hours about, what about strawberries and celery or something like that. We'll just talk about strawberries and celery and different combinations of things. And that was he's a huge influence for me. And also working with Annalise Gregory was wonderful. Her food is incredible. And Dan Johnson, to be honest, he is just at Don Pepino's. He is he works so clean out of any chef I know. He's the cleanest worker, so tidy. He cares so much, and that was invaluable working with him.
You mentioned that you take a little bit from different places that you work. What do you take from your time with Pasi?
I think just like I referenced with Dan, just attention to detail and caring about the food you're producing, but also just wanting to eat and talk about food and wanting to cook for people. And it sounds really simple, but it's true. These chefs, they love eating, they love talking about food, and they care so much. And I think that's what I really took from Pasi. And also he has fun with it as well. He's very serious because you need to be, but also he doesn't take himself too seriously.
As you mentioned at the top of the show, you're cooking dishes inspired from all over Italy. When did you first sort of start a foray into Italian food as a chef?
That would have been it started at Acme, really. I mean, it wasn't, strictly Italian, but Mitchell was the first person that allowed me to make pasta on my own. He was like, just go and do it. And he just threw me in the deep end with that. And you're making like 7 pastas a day. And it was wonderful. So that's where it kind of started. But then it really, I really took a lot more influence from Dan Johnson at Don Pepino's. That menu that was awesome. We change it every 2 weeks, which I would love to be able to do. And he just took us around the whole of Italy within that year or so that we worked there. He's wonderful.
What is it about Italian cuisine, and what's your approach with it? What's sort of important in getting sort of dishes right with Italian food?
They just have to, it sounds simple, but they have to just be super tasty. And there's nowhere to hide, I think, because they're so simple. A lot of the time they're so simple that those elements have to be perfect. It's like a tomato. It's like there's no point in using, or a piece of beautiful melon. There's no point in using something that is, subpar. You're not going to get away with it at all.
You mentioned you've been with the Swill House Group for a couple of years now. How did you first sort of cross paths and join the group?
Well, it was straight after the first lockdown, and Dan. So Don Pepino's closed, sadly, and Dan wasn't really looking for a job, Dan Johnson, and I pushed him to take the head chef role at Alberto's so that I could get a job. And I knew that he would eventually leave as well, so I was trying to set myself up for his role.
A cunning plan that paid off. Well, take us into the kitchen there. You sort of touched on sort of what you're doing there. Is there a dish or two that you have on at the moment that you could talk us through about how you make it and why it's so special?
Well, yes, I love we have a duck ragu on at the moment. It kind of starts off as like a ragu bianco, but I use a base of anchovies, garlic, and guanciale or prosciutto offcuts that are all minced up together. You render that all down, and then you add reduced white wine, duck mince, bouquet garni with marjoram, thyme, sage, bay, and then you cook out all of the meat low and slow, add some duck stock, and then at the end you finish with milk and some cinnamon and nutmeg to get those Venetian spices going. And then I finish also with some duck livers just at the end. So when they turn the heat off, I just throw those in raw and they just set. I love that.
That sounds extraordinary.
It's beautiful, yeah. Yeah. I've got one more, which I love at the moment. It's called Mini de Sant Agata, which is a Sicilian pastry, which it literally translates to St. Agatha's tits, and it's shaped like a breast. And so you find them all around Sicily, and they're usually like a ricotta-filled pastry that's coated in usually like a white icing with a glacé cherry nipple on top. And so years ago, this chick's Agatha, she was asked out by this dude, and she denied him, and so he cut off her breasts, and she walked around the town square with them. She's depicted walking around the town square with them on a plate, and so she's now the patron saint of Sicily, and that pastry is named after her. So I've done a version of that that is pink and pretty and has a glacé cherry nipple on top.
That's an amazing story. I love it.
Yeah.
Tell us about stepping into the role as head chef. What was it like for you, and were you surprised by what it takes compared to being part of the team?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot. I feel like it's where I should be, but it is, like a lot of the time you're dealing with different personalities and problem solving. And that's really hard sometimes. And I think it's really difficult at the moment with a lack of chefs. There aren't a lot of chefs around. They're slowly coming back to Sydney, but it was tough for a while. So that has really been really difficult. But I also I love it. I mean, it's what I love doing. I get to come into work and chop vegetables and cook meat, and it's really fun. So yeah,
it's an amazing little venue tucked away down a side street, and you wouldn't know it's there unless you know it's there. And the kitchen is tiny as well. What's it like focusing and dealing with such a small kitchen and not being sort of lost in the energy of the room as well? Because it's it's got such an energy as a restaurant venue.
I think it's really important to have that. I love hearing the crowd outside, and it's very difficult. Our kitchen, I'm not going to lie. It's luckily we got some storage space upstairs and some fridges upstairs, which saved us over Christmas. That was incredible. But last year when we had Danielle Alvarez and Roisin Call do a couple of nights with us, we had to get in a refrigerated van to store our whole cool room, and that was stored at head office, and so we could have a whole cool room filled with their stuff, which was pretty stressful, but we make it work. I don't know how sometimes. I'm not really sure, but we make it work.
2023 certainly feels like a different year to the last few that we've had. With sort of peak COVID and the hospitality and turmoil compared to now, has that whole sort of experience changed your approach to your craft or personally?
Definitely. I think we've had to all kind of rethink what we're going to eventually do with our careers, and that's why I think 10 Hats kind of came out of that, which was straight after the second lockdown, I think it was. A few friends and I started to rethink our careers, and this is before I went into this role, but I mean still we just so we just started this little kind of one-off event, dinner party / party thing, I don't know how to describe it, that we run every few months, and yeah.
Well, 10 Hats Bistro, it was amazing what you guys created. Tell us who's involved and what it actually is.
So we've got myself, Ella Stenning, who takes care of wine, Madison Costello, who is our accounts and producer and events extraordinaire manager, and she's in advertising and she's a DJ as well, and Anna Ugarte, who is a wonderful chef.
And what are the sort of one-off events that you're doing? Do you have an example of one that you can tell us about that sort of exemplifies 10 Hats Bistro? Yeah,
we did it at Poor Tom's Gin Hall. We did a Ibiza day club where we just had instead of a red carpet, we had a pink carpet, which was really cool. Had a lot of DJs, and we just did this kind of island Ibiza club themed degustation of food and a big pig on a spit, and just had a great party. It was wonderful.
You mentioned Anna, we've had her on the show as well, and she's like you. She's part of this new wave of amazing chefs that are taking Australia into another direction. What does it feel like sort of being part of that wave? Do you feel an obligation? Is there a pressure in that?
I do feel a lot of pressure with that, but I think it's a good thing, and it gives us drive to do events like we do with 10 Hats to make Sydney fun. Like, that's why we do it. We do it for ourselves, but we also do it for everyone else, because I think that Sydney needs those, fun things.
Well, there's a long year ahead. Do you have any plans for the year for more events or for what might unfold with Alberto's?
Yes, we do. It's very hard to do them because we're very busy, but we've got a huge list of ideas that's like, there's like 50 on there. So we just pick and, it's about like when we get together, we just start saying great things and stupid things and trying to like mash them up into ideas. So I know we want to do like a big, cool R&B club night, like a 2000 R&B club night. We also want to do a kind of like diamonds and pearls themed thing. Not sure about that yet. And we want to do one called Club Sport, which is going to be very cool and maybe set at one of those Marrickville sports clubs with big DJs and tennis outfits and strawberries and cream themed things.
Well, you're doing amazing things there at Alberto's Lounge. What do you love about what you do?
Well, I love cooking. I love eating. I love talking about food, and that is my job. And I think that when I talk to a lot of people in my life, a lot of them are really happy with their jobs and a lot of people aren't, or they don't talk about them. I am one of those lucky people that love what I do.
Well, there's a lot of people that love what you do as well, and it's an absolute honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds today. Good luck with the year ahead, and please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks for having me.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.